It is time for a brand new design challenge here at Ann Briggs' house. We have the help of the one and only April Wilkerson, and we are about to design and build a one-day farm table for the brand new deck we just laid down outside. It's gonna be a quick project, it's gonna be a dirty project, it's gonna be a hell of a fun project because these two clowns made me laugh incessantly, so let's get busy.
Alright friends, I'm actually going to narrate this one because there are certain tips and techniques that I want you to understand that you may or may not be able to glean from just the visuals. First and foremost, we are using reclaimed timber, in this case Doug fir, which means we had to start by removing all the nails and screws as best we could in order to minimize any damage to the machines. The original idea was to use the bandsaw for the rough milling process, but pretty quickly we ran into our first problem.
So, we hit our first snafu. The boards don't fit through the bandsaw right now, and they don't fit through the thicknesser right now. So what we're gonna do is we are going to borrow a power planer from a friend of ours so that we can process one face of these boards, and then we can go back to the bandsaw, resaw them, and then go back to the thicknesser and get them all nice and cleaned up.
I was actually pretty happy with the results we were getting from the power planer. It removed material quickly and left a pretty flat surface from which to work on the bandsaw. The problem with processing these boards on the bandsaw, however, was that we only had a 1/4-inch blade and the machine simply wasn't powerful enough to resaw this material. So we changed our approach and used a circular saw to create a kerf on the top and bottom of each board before finishing the cut with a reciprocating saw. The first few cuts were pretty rough, but after one or two we got better at this technique and we're getting pretty clean cuts as you can see here. Any discrepancies or high spots that were left were leveled with the power planer before sending it through the thicknesser. And after that, it was just a lot of milling. Now, 3 people milling long boards in a small shop can get pretty tight, so Ann and I had to be mindful not only of our own cuts, but of the other person's cut as well to ensure we didn't bump into one another. Before I glue up a tabletop, I always check to ensure the boards are doing what I want them to do visually. In this case, I placed any of the abnormalities or defects in the boards towards the middle of the tabletop to create a balanced look. Given that this was a one-day build, we had some serious time limitations and we had to glue this tabletop up in one fell swoop. And as we only have about 5 minutes to work with yellow glue, we only spread glue on one side of each of the 5 butt joints. We lathered it on thick and we clamped it down tight and we had no problems.
We are, I don't know, 5-6 hours into it. We have the tabletop glued up. We have stock for the aprons all milled up. We have the leg stock that's about to get milled up. Once we basically get the table base all set, we're just gonna take that tabletop out, we're gonna clean up the glue, we're gonna sand it all down and make it look all pretty. And then this thing's gonna be done, so we're not that far off.
For the base of the table, dominoes were our primary joinery technique. If you don't have a domino, fear not. Dominoes are nothing more than floating tenons, which you can create yourself as you see me doing here, and you can cut the mortise with a simple router jig. Short of that, biscuits will do the job just as well.
So while those guys are in there working hard, sanding the legs and the aprons right now, I just wanted to show you. So we just ran out of dominoes, which are going to be used to attach the apron to the legs. So in lieu of having enough, I just went ahead and made some out of a quick little piece of cherry stock, rounded the edges over with a hand plane. So if you're ever in a pinch, don't think you got to run out to the store. Just make a simple domino super quick. I think it took me 3 minutes.
And here we come to crunch time. While I'm gluing up the first part of the base, Anne is using a belt sander to flatten any discrepancies in the tabletop after the glue up, and April is coming right behind her to clean it up with a random orbit sander. Now, something I want to address while I'm squaring up the end of this tabletop is that this build did technically bleed into a second day. That's because Friday night was our last night in Seattle, and Anne, April, and I decided we would rather enjoy hanging out with one another than spending all night in the shop. So we called it quits around 7, came back in the morning, and spent about 2 hours finishing the table. We could have gotten it done in one day, but it's good to spend time with friends outside of the shop as well. You can see I used pocket holes to assemble the long sides of the apron. This is not to add strength, though it is adding some measure of strength, but rather to act as a permanent clamp. Given the extreme time limitations of this challenge, this allows me to continue to work on the table as the glue dries. And here it is, my friends, the one-day table build.
I'm into it. Well, friends, it has been a day. And how do you feel about this table?
It is eat-worthy.
It is eat-worthy. April, how do you feel about this table?
I think it's great. One-day build. Heck
It is
yeah.
a one-day build. Friends, if we can build a table in one day, you can too. It's very, very simple. So, until next time, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.